Now, the animal kingdom, because this is where we find ourselves as humans, we and our pets are animals, this is the area that you think that you have the most information. And if you look at the map that I have out for you, you'll see that this is the animal part of the map has as much information pretty much as the rest of the map combined, almost. So there's a lot of information here, but I'm going to spend very little time talking about it because at first you are familiar with animals, and we have to decide what we're going to spend our time on. And because you guys are unfamiliar with protists and you're probably unfamiliar with fungi, this is an area where we don't need to spend as much time. So by definition, your animals are heterotrophic. That means they cannot produce their own food. They must ingest it. They are diploid. The main part of the organism is diploid. The only haploid part of our bodies are our gametes. We are multicellular, which is classic eukaryotic organisms. And there's a thing called a blastula. So if we're in class, I spend more time talking about this embryonic development. In comparative embryology, you saw this word, hopefully, blastula, but you don't have that good an understanding, nor will you. When we look at the animal definition, the animal evolutionary milestones, what does this mean? The animal evolutionary milestones. So I'm going to show you this graphic here. So when we teach this unit, there are many different animal phyla. And we want you to know the important ones that kind of exemplify major steps from one phylum to the next in the animal evolutionary development. So it makes a good connection with the unit that we just left. So in this graphic, I have animals, and there's a base definition for an animal. And then your animals, they all exhibit, for the most part, some kind of symmetry, some kind of organization. Body plans show an organization to the animal structure. And your simplest of animals doesn't have any kind of symmetry. Your coral just grow haphazardly. They only have the base definition of an animal, which includes being multicellular and heterotrophic. But then we have this symmetry, right? After we've looked at the sponges, when we start going up this tree here of complexity, we start to see symmetry, of which there are two major types. One of the symmetries is radial, which we'll see in the cnidarians, your jellyfish and hydra. We will look at the hydra in class. And the other one, so that means they're able to meet the environment from any single direction. It doesn't matter if the organism that's attacking them or that they want to prey on are coming from the left, right, up, down. It's all the same direction to them because they don't have a head, so they can move in any direction. But bilateral symmetry is where the majority of your animals have that structure. So with bilateral symmetry, they have a head. The development of a head is called cephalization. Cephalization has a head. The head is where a lot of sensory structures, eyes, nose, ears, that kind of stuff, is all concentrated, which allows the organism to meet the environment from a particular direction. It allows them to be a great hunter. So hunters have this cephalization that allows them to track down their prey or evade their prey if they need be. So that symmetry is a major animal evolutionary milestone. Then we start to keep on looking at the structure. When you look inside the organism itself, you'll notice that there are different structures that allow the organism to be successful. Having a body cavity means that you can have organs. There's certain animals, these flatworms, that do not have a body cavity, and so they rely on diffusion for the most part to get nutrients to move from its body up and down, which also limits its size. The nematodes are roundworms, and they have a fake body cavity, we call it. So they have room for organs. But it's not until you get to the true body cavity when you get to more complex structures. And then as you look at this body cavity, it allows you to have sophisticated organs, a mouth and everything leading to the anus. And as we keep on looking at the development of animals, the last major evolutionary milestone is the embryo and how it develops. Some embryos develop in a certain way where if they get damaged early on, these protostomes, then they will abort. Some animals have a certain kind of development that if they get damaged early, they can still produce a viable animal. So I know I'm missing the graphics here, but the last of these animal phyla are the echinoderms and the chordates. The echinoderms, as you'll notice, are the starfish and sea cucumbers, look more closely related to our chordates based on this tree that I've created and the fact that deuterostome is something that we share. So as you look at the PowerPoint, these things here, these animal evolutionary milestones, if we were doing a test, this is something I would have said I would absolutely test you on. This is important knowledge. This is what tells us that makes one phyla more complex than the other. There are some other things I didn't mention on there, including segmentation, and you'll see them on the PowerPoint as you work through it. So you'll work through the PowerPoint, especially with the animal phyla, and that's where you get most of the learning as you track it on back to the worksheet. Okay? So we're focusing on 9 phyla, and each of them have an evolutionary milestone associated with it. As you guys look at that map and you're trying to figure out what belongs where, so I've given you each of the phyla on this PowerPoint. The Porifera is the proper name, sponges is the common name. Right? Orange represents the phylum. These are all animal kingdom, so orange represents the phylum. The class I was supposed to put in blue, that was my mistake, so that should be blue. And the examples are purple. So when we look at Porifera here, there's several examples of sponges, and not this thing here, that's a crab. And these sponges have, I don't really care about how it's broken down, so that's why I just said sponges. Cnidaria represents the phylum, of which I would like you to know 1, 2, 3, 4 classes. Cubozoa, this I've through Hydrozoa, and so on. And then examples include your jellyfish. Oh, I spelled coral wrong, I'll correct that. Jellyfish and Hydra. So when you guys go back to that map, you'll see a place where you're able to put in that information. So here in the animal kingdom, there's the Porifera. Notice I didn't have any classes. There's the Cnidaria. There's your 4 classes that you put in there with the examples, and so on and so on and so on. So just keep on going through the PowerPoint and you'll see those examples. Platyhelminthes, of which I have 3 classes and 3 examples. This is where it says side video lesson for interest and backstory available. It's going to be on worms, parasites. So that'll be interesting. Nematodes are roundworms. You'll notice I just have the 1 class here. Annelids, which you know as earthworms, but earthworms only represent a small, tiny portion of the biodiversity of that particular phylum. So I've given you 3 different classes and then 3 different examples. The polychaetes include many, many, many different worms. These are worms you find in the ocean. Mollusks are so different. Snails and squid belong to the same phylum. They're all mollusks. Arthropods, the most populous, the largest of all the phyla. This phyla is so large that we break this phylum into subphylum. And the subphylum of arthropods include Hexapoda, Chelicerates, Crustacea, and Myriapoda. So this blue here is actually subphyla, they're not the classes. And then these purple here represent the classes. So there's, I think, 11 classes I have here. So it's phylum, subphylum, and class. Okay. Echinoderm, phylum, you got the classes and the examples. And then the chordates. Chordates is the one that we're most familiar with, so we really do break this down to a lot of categories. Your chordates, we have the phylum of Chordata. The phylum of Chordata is broken down into subphylum, which is not listed here, and the subphylum are broken down into superclasses, which one is listed here, and those superclasses are broken down into classes, and then I have examples. So if I come back to this graphic here that I've asked you to complete to get a full understanding, if I scroll over here to the chordates, and I'll make it a bit larger so you guys can see it, into the chordates, so that is your phylum. In the phylum of chordates, see I say characteristics, that means I want you to tell me the characteristics of chordates. to click on those and find out. There are 1, 2, 3 subphylum. Tunicates is one, Cephalocordate is another. Notice if you click on the link here, I have given you the information. And the third one is, what is it? So you have to look at my notes to figure that out. So it's missing, you got to put it in. And then in this subphylum here, there are 2 superclasses. One of the agnathans, which are your jawless fish. So these are fish without jaws. So when you guys go through the learning, you're going to understand how the jaw evolved a little bit. And then there's the other superclass that includes the jawed animals. And I want you to tell me the name of that superclass. So it's missing. That's why there's a question mark there. In this superclass, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 classes. There's 2 fish classes. There's actually 3 fish. The agnathans are this category. And then there's 2 fish classes in this superclass. And then there's amphibians, reptiles, birds, aves, and mammals. And then the mammals, I've asked you to go to the next group down. So mammals is the class. So after class comes, does King Philip come over, so O for order, comes the order. So marsupial and monotremes are orders, and they're very special orders. Placental is a group. It's not a taxa. So I'm telling you that now, and hopefully you'll remember that and see that. Placental is a group. I want you to give me one placental order, of which there are many, and then give me an example and then pictures. Okay? So that graphic will help you get everything organized. So the rest of this PowerPoint, it just goes over all those evolutionary milestones. It talks about the symmetry. It talks about the body plans with the coelomate. It talks about the germ layers and how they're located. You click on that link to help you answer one of the questions. You keep on working through to find out what segmentation is about. You'll see some examples. Arthropods, I gave you a bit more information because it is, the biggest of our phyla. So there's a lot of information in there. You don't have access to this link. I just gave you a full link to everything, so you don't have to worry about that. But at least it gives you a breakdown of the arthropod phylum, the subphyla, these 4 of them, the classes, 4 in Crustacea, 2 in hexapods, one's insect, and the other one is this other special one. Chelicerates, there's 3 classes, but this class here, the arachnids, I'd like you to know about the ticks, the mites, and the scorpions, and then the myriapoda has 4. Right. So as you go through these slides, you'll see more information about each of them. Some examples. This shrimp is amazing, the mantis shrimp. It's we have 3 cones that allow us to see different colors. We're able to see like 2 million gradations of color or something like this. These guys have like 16 or 12 or something like that. The only terrestrial crustacean are the pill bugs. You guys have probably seen them. People call them roly-polies or potato bugs. They don't eat potatoes. Right. So just work your way through this point. These are the guys that live in your face. So on your face, you got these mites. They're part of your ecosystem on your skin. And your insects. You've seen them. There are so many of them. Your insects have different types of life cycles depending on what you're looking at. If you're a fly, if you are a butterfly, if you are a beetle, then or an ant or a wasp, you rely on this complete metamorphosis. The young is a larva and it undergoes this major transformation where the adult looks quite different. The adult has sexual structures and wings. There's incomplete metamorphosis. So if you look at this baby grasshopper, it looks just like the adult except it's missing the wings and the sexual structures. Unity is strength. When there is teamwork and collaboration, wonderful things can be achieved. Here, this frog wanted to eat those ants, but his own life is at risk in front of their unity. This picture was taken in Bangladesh. I thought it was a cool graphic. Okay. So you'll see some more information that talks about the difference between protostome and deuterostome. You'll see these slides here that give you information about chordates, so I encourage you to work through them. And it breaks down what each of the different subphyla, superclass, characteristics of vertebrates are, which is one of the answers that you're missing, but you'll figure that out as you work your way through it. So all these slides here, it just gives you more information about the chordates. You'll notice that I'm not actually talking about it, so you can use this information to help fill in the worksheet. You'll notice on your worksheet, I don't go into a lot of questions asking you about the details of the chordates because there simply isn't enough time. The bone war is fascinating. I really wish I could talk about it. And our understanding of where did the dinosaurs go. We didn't really talk about this in evolution. We should have, but we didn't. So where are the dinosaurs? So I encourage you to work your way through this PowerPoint to find out where the dinosaurs went. Okay. Some of you might already know the answer, but just work your way through the PowerPoint. In this picture here, that's Darian standing in this exhibit we went to in someplace in Ohio. It was a hockey tournament, and they had this really, really cool dinosaur exhibit. And they were representing dinosaurs more true with the feathers, because we now understand that many dinosaurs had feathers. The feathers might have looked quite a bit different, but they were feathers. So you'll see some evidence here that's going to tell you where the dinosaurs went. We know most of them got wiped out. There's no Brachiosaurus or Diplodocus or Velociraptor around, but there's something going on. So work your way through that. And of course the mammals. So what characteristics make up a mammal? What is a major characteristic that defines a mammal? I'm going to click and show you. They're all on here. Right. So hair, our heart, and mammary glands. Mammary glands. They allow the female mammal to produce milk. Viviparous means to produce live young, and endothermic means that they have the ability to control their body temperature. The top 1, 2, 3, 4 are true of all mammals. The bottom 2 are not. There are 2 or 3 really odd mammals that are not able that lay eggs, though they don't bear live young, and are not able to control their body temperature very well. And you might be able to figure out what they are in just a moment. Okay? So the egg layers include our spiny anteater and our duck-billed platypus. It's an animal that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. Your marsupials, like your kangaroos and wallabies and koalas, they produce an immature fetus that crawls out when it's super young and then goes into a pouch. And your placental mammals are very, very, very successful. There's only one marsupial not found in Australia, and that is the opossum, which lives in this area, as a matter of fact. So of these 4, which one is an animal? A, B, C, or D? Which one is a bacteria? Which one is a fungus? Which one is a plant? Why isn't a paramecium considered an animal? You should be able to answer a question like this. And on the next and last slide, I give you that answer. We are done with the, what was it, 190,000 slide biodiversity, fungus, animal, and protist video lesson. If you have any questions, make sure that you ask. You have the worksheet to work through. You have the flip grid at the end that you're going to work through, and you're going to post an interesting example of a biodiversity. You're going to tell us about the taxonomy, the human impact, its impact on biodiversity, and comment on 2 other people in the class and how their organisms might interact with your organism. And that will be a good way for you to complete your understanding. Hand in the worksheet at the end of the week, and you'll have your end of the week questions as per usual. Next week will be plants. Look for the little things this week, including the 2 extra video lessons that are interesting and the instructions for growing your plant for next week. Thank you, and I'll talk to you soon.